Hello, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers. As we explore the question, will my lips be in sync with the words that I'm saying? It's a surprisingly complex issue. So don't watch the lips. I'll sort it out eventually. Um, Christian Post. There's an article here in the Voices section that I would like to interact with seriously because I think it's a goodish article and I think it's important. So I do want to take a moment, to go through this and deal with the serious ideas in it. Because I agree with some of it. Maybe the framing is a bit off. But let's get into it. Beyond the Meme, a Christian's Guide to Navigating Digital Mockery. Let me read that again. Beyond the Meme, a Christian's Guide to Navigating Digital Mockery. Okay. So the framing, I'm already a little bit put off by. I know this is a Christian publication, and so you're going to get, opinions from the perspective of cultists. I get that. But I think it would have been even more helpful to do what I plan to do with this, and just talk about a guide to navigating digital mockery. Period. We don't need a Christian's guide. Because it's almost to say, well, the Christian is the only one really suffering from this. The Christian is the one being persecuted. Poor persecuted Christians. This is part of the mantra of this particular publication and Christians in general these days, especially evangelical. Persecution. And so it's Christians who are being mocked, and Christians who need a solution for mockery. Never mind the suicide that results from Christians doing serious emotional bullying to people. It's not what this is about. But maybe if you want to be taken a little bit more seriously when you're talking about a serious issue, try self-awareness. Maybe try that first. All right, the other day I received a barrage of memes and cartoons that mocked Christian beliefs. I ignored them, and the sender messaged me again with an assertive and condescending tone. I still didn't reply, and it ended. Okay, let's explore that. This happens when you take a controversial position, and beliefs in God, believe it or not, is a controversial position. But Christianity is so much more than belief in a particular God. There's a reason why Hinduism isn't controversial, or Buddhism is not controversial. There are reasons for that. Something like Christianity, Islam, even Judaism, these are controversial religions because they make certain claims about the world, and it's not just, some innocent, oh, I happen to believe this thing, and that works for me. It's not that. No one is being persecuted because they believe in a God. So I would like to extend Candida Moss's myth of persecution. Because Christians are living in the reality of a myth of persecution. Oh, there are places in the world where Christians are treated badly, but they're not treated badly because they believe in a God. They're treated badly because of their doctrines and their treatment of other people. And they just can't take that fact on board. They're entitled in places that do not recognize their entitlement. All right, so to the point, though, of someone targeting and hunting down a writer. I often tell people who want to get in the business of blogging or being a journalist or, being a name, being someone who has a voice in the community, there's a price that goes with that. And if you can't stand the bright lights, you can get out of those bright lights. This is what you wanted. So you can't be controversial and a flamethrower and also expect that no one is going to forcibly interact with you in this way. That said, I think hunting down journalists, bloggers, assholes in general, and trying to force interaction on them that they don't want is a dick move, and you should not do it. You should not do it. You should not spam William Lane Craig's inbox. If you happen to get his email address or his messages handle or whatever, you should not, unless he invites people to send comments, then your unsolicited commentary is a form of bullying. It is spamming and a form of bullying, and you are a dick, and you should stop. And in fact, I think there should be laws, uh, enforceable laws that stop you. All right, that's what I believe. So even if I were a big celebrity, and I'm not even a small celebrity really, but even if I was that, it doesn't give you the right to me. That may be a reasonable expectation that some people have access to you in a way that they wouldn't have access to you if you weren't a public figure. That still doesn't give someone the right to stalk and torment you. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or an atheist. It doesn't matter how hot button your takes are on a given topic. All right. There are circumstances that can, I think, even, temper that advice, which is to say someone like, is it Glenn Scrivener? No, I don't think it's Glenn Scrivener that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, anyway, a guy that goes to college campuses and, tries to start up inflammatory conversations with atheists. There are a few of those, or quite a few of those. The people who go to your door, maybe they leave you pamphlets and business cards and things like that. I think those people who are throwing themselves in your face when you are trying to live your life deserve to have you thrown in their face when they're trying to live theirs. They kind of started a fight, and it is proper to fight back when someone is punching you in the face. I am not a pacifist, and I have been punched in the face. You learn to fight back, or you get used to having a bunch of surgery on your face. Right? I choose fighting back. So, people like that, I think you can be as assertive as you want to. I think you can be as rude as you want to. I think that you can say things and do within reason things that make them regret their decision to disturb your life and get in their face. All right. But even that has limits. Even that has limits. But if they're there where you're trying to study Or they throw a tract or a pamphlet or business card on a bus so that you're forced to interact with it. Yeah, call the number every day. Do they leave a website? DDoS that motherfucker. Absolutely. Fight back. But that said, that has its limits, but you didn't start that fight. And they left you the means to continue that fight. And I believe that there are laws that should prohibit them from doing that in the same way I believe that there are laws that should prohibit you from hunting people down and harassing them because of their beliefs or anything else. So I am consistent there. So what is being described in the first paragraph of this article is a sad situation that I don't know the full extent of, and the full extent will never be told, and we'll only get one small piece of one side of it. And so the framing that we get. The sender's apparent confidence comes from knowing that ridicule can be effective. Digital memes can portray something as laughable, and the mocked perspective gets berated automatically, albeit without intellectual rigor. All right, I can half agree with this as someone who deals in polemic. Is one of the reasons that you might deal in polemic, to reach a person at one level where intellectual argument may not be as effective. But the thing about polemic, if you use it right, it is a tool in the toolbox. It is not the tool. And if the only thing you bring to a debate is a high facility with language and rhetoric, you have nothing. You have nothing. And so at that point, whatever mockery you perform is just a performance. It's not an argument. Mockery is not an argument. But it might be a way of getting people to see what is ridiculous. And one of the reasons we need certain forms of mockery is because we live in a society where we don't know the difference between rational and ridiculous. And when we are dealing with the ridiculous, it is not only okay, it is incumbent upon us to ridicule it because its very nature, it is ridiculous. And so we should do with the ridiculous what the word calls for us to do. We should ridicule it, identify it as ridiculous. But that doesn't stand as a substitute for intellectual rigor, for explanation. It just may be the gateway that gets people to a place where you can begin to have an intellectual conversation. And when there's not time for an intellectual conversation, memes are not intellectual conversations. A tattoo on your arm is not an intellectual conversation, but it might lead to one, right? It's an entrance into one. And so, in that sense, ridiculing memes are appropriate as a part of conversational framing. But again, they're not the whole. If they're the whole conversation, then they've not said anything. However, they might serve the purpose of getting people to realize, the difference between the reasonable and the ridiculous, because we do live in a time where people have truly forgotten the difference between reasonable and ridiculous. It's like dealing with a person who doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. And then you have to do some things to snap them out of it and say that that's fantasy, this is reality, that's how we know. Um, and we're in that time right now where the ridiculous is harder to identify, and somehow you become a bad guy if you say that a thing is ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with that. You you might have to back it up. It may be regrettable that we live in a society where you have to somehow prove that ridiculous things are ridiculous. But that's where we are, and so that's why I say just identifying something as ridiculous is not sufficient. I also I don't appreciate the one-sidedness of this argument, as if Christians have not, for ages on ages, when they have been in power, ridiculed non-believers. In fact, what Christians do with regard to non-believers is worse than ridicule. It's dehumanization. Right? And I think that's just fine. That's cool. The it's the Bible, their Bible, their God is the one who says that if you don't believe in that God, you're a fool. Are you kidding me? And so they're upset by a few ridiculing memes when their fundamental belief is that you are a fool for the crime of not believing in their God. So this article could stand to have a bit more self-awareness. Just so you know, if my voice starts to sound muffled at places, that's noise cancellation trying to overwhelm the noise of my barking dog. It is so hard to talk to you over that noise. I can't think. Now, you may not hear the noise, but whenever you hear some kind of audio aberration, it's because the noise cancellation is canceling out some noise that would make this utterly impossible. All right, let's move. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Christians should remain grounded and recognize ridicule as a psychological play that is bereft of intellectual warrant. Ridiculing content can lead to fruitless and emotionally draining conversations, as Paul cautioned, have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies. You know that they breed quarrels. 2 Timothy 2:23. Again, um, this is impossibly, uh, embarrassingly non-self-aware. There are some good ideas here, but I'm really trying hard to dig the good ideas out of the garbage uh, that the framing uh, has created here. Um, so Christians have nothing to do with foolish and ignorant controversies. You know how they define foolish and ignorant controversies? It's things they don't agree with. If they don't agree, it's a foolish and ignorant controversy. If it bothers them and they don't have an opinion about it, or they do have an opinion that's different from yours, then it's just a foolish and ignorant controversy. You know, there's nothing in that passage or any passage that would actually identify what is a foolish thing and what isn't a foolish thing. Conversations. Conversation can mean two people talking, or it can mean the way you live your lives. Conversations and controversies. How do you define those things, and how do you identify the foolish ones? When do you decide, oh, that person is wrong? But it seems like this is an opportunity to teach, so I'm going to go ahead and weigh in on that. Versus, oh, that's a conversation that a Christian should stay out of. There's no way to categorize those things. And so this advice from Paul is empty calories. There's just there's no there. But I think that we can maybe find some way to steel man this. Um, Ridiculing content can lead to fruitless and emotionally draining conversations. I agree. And if you're the kind of person who can't handle it, you can't handle your ridiculous ideas being ridiculed, get off the fucking internet. Or at least get off the internet for a little while. Because you know what? The internet is two-way. That's the beauty of it. It's two-way conversation. It's not just you getting to say things, getting to preach, and then jetting out of there. You get to preach, but then the people you're preaching to get to call you, or at least your ideas, idiotic. Right? That is equally valid. And if you can't stand, if that's the kind of thing that triggers you in some way, or that gets you emotionally drained in some way, and uh, it makes you sad or mad or whatever it is, don't blame the people responding to you. Just walk away. Some of the people who listen to my podcasts or read my articles should not. You shouldn't do it. If you can't handle strong opposition to what you believe, don't watch me. Don't listen to me. Don't interact with my ideas. Stay sheltered. That's your choice. You can stay sheltered. You don't have to jump in. You don't have to go to skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. You don't have to log into your Discuss account and discuss away. You don't have to do that. You don't have to listen to the podcasts that come out sometimes several times a day. You can stop that behavior right now, because that's the other great feature about the internet. We might put out some content. Nobody has to listen. No one has to interact. Same with you. You might put out some content, maybe poisonous and so forth. You don't have the right to be so thin-skinned that you get upset with people who interact with you. Right? If you're that thin-skinned, internet's not the place for you. Stop it. Stop it. Go home. Watch I Love Lucy. Live your best life. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really hate doing is I get someone who is clearly triggered by this stuff, is clearly not emotionally um, stable enough, firm enough at this particular point in their life, trying to tackle me on something that I said. Because, how do I react to that? Do I react in a kind, gentle, loving way and realize that I am dealing with someone who has childlike sensibilities at this time for whatever reason, and just ignore them because they're truly, they're trying to interact with, and it's clear that they can't? Do I do that? Or do I interact with them as if they were a fully capable, fully functioning, fully mature adult who can handle hard conversations on the internet? I don't like being put in that position. I don't like being put in that position. I would rather you not respond. I would rather you take care of your mental hygiene and leave this stuff alone. Live your life. Love your God. Be your best self. Nobody is going to knock on your door and try to change you. Uh, the psychology of ridicule is very well. Okay, one more thing here. I know that some of you probably feel like I've breezed past it. Christians should remain grounded and recognize ridicule as a psychological play that is bereft of intellectual warranty, that is just bullshit. Some of the best intellectual work comes in the form of ridicule and satire. So if you're just dismissing it because of its genre, polemic, and you're saying there's nothing intellectual in there, then maybe you're the dum-dum. The psychology of ridicule is very real, and it also entails a fallacy of ridicule whereby a view is allegedly refuted by satirical force. Let's unpack it with a useful explanation. I'm not going to go to that link. You can. But again, the framing here is just wrong. So I would say, in an attempt to steel man, it can be that way. Ridicule can be empty calories, just like a sermon can be empty calories. But it is not inherently that. It is often, some sharp, pithy disagreement that is well said and easily remembered is sometimes the most intellectual thing that is said. So you cannot um, dismiss an entire genre of communication because some people don't do it well. Because that would be like me saying any sermon where a Christian gets to spout their fantasy nonsense to um, a welcoming audience uncritically is inherently bad and untrue. It's not true. Such a sermon could be full of many good truths. The fact that I think most aren't does not give me the right to say that all sermons are inherently false. And it doesn't give this writer to say that all ridicule entails a fallacy. It does not. And in fact, I would say that ridicule is like humor. It entails a certain honesty that is forced onto the hearer. If I tell you a joke about something that you're very serious, uh, and you laugh at it, well, I gotcha. I'm not evil. I didn't do anything dishonest. I made you face your own dishonesty. You can say that sort of thing isn't funny, but you laughed your ass off. Laughing is an involuntary thing. It's like sneezing. Can't make yourself do it, and you can't make yourself stop. You can try. You can um, kind of make yourself or help yourself to stop after the thing has already started, but you can't stop it from starting. You can't stop a sneeze from starting. By the time you know that you are sneezing and you try to clamp down on it, the process has already begun. By the time you start trying to clamp down on your laughter, the revelation that you think it's funny is already out. You can't help that. You can lie to yourself, but you actually don't decide what is funny any more than you can decide what you believe. It's an involuntary reaction, and your true self is going to come through it. Ridicule is a little bit like that. If someone mocks an idea of yours, if someone uses polemic and it lands, and you feel like you've got to respond to it because it cut in a way that you don't like to admit, well, what that might actually uh, be saying is you felt the ridiculousness of the thing you said. You realized the ridiculousness of it, and that's why you reacted. Because if someone tries to ridicule you over a thing that's not ridiculous, it wouldn't land at all. You wouldn't even know what they were talking about. You'd shrug your shoulders and move on. You only respond the way you do because you recognize the ridiculousness of some of this. This is why arguments, apologetic arguments over, decades and centuries have to be revised again and again and again because their opponents have used polemic and ridicule to show the person making the argument that, yeah, that it was kind of stupid. And they've got to address it. They've got to go back and fix it to see if it can be beyond ridicule. Ridicule is useful, can be harmful, but to, again, reject the genre as inherently fallacious is itself, I think, fallacious. Let's go a little bit faster. Ridicule is a psychological attack. Oh boy. If I sound repetitive, it's because this article is a little bit repetitive. It's a psychological attack, not a logical one. It works because humans are social creatures. Nobody wants to be associated with something that's seen as ridiculous. If you can make an idea look silly, you don't have to prove it wrong. People will naturally distance themselves from it. As Terry Pratchett once said, laughter can kill reason faster than a knife. Okay. I don't disagree with all of this, but what you're actually describing is how ridicule works. It helps people recognize the ridiculous. If they didn't disagree with the idea that that thing is ridiculous, they wouldn't react to it. Okay? Um, and sometimes people who are in the middle of the ridiculous need society to be a mirror for them. If you're wearing a really bad dress, sometimes you need someone to come up and say that is an ugly dress. Okay? Um, that's what you need so that you realize, oh, well, maybe that was a bad choice. Let me let me put on something else. I guess I shouldn't have worn the dress that is shaped like a peach making love to a banana to a person's wedding. That was a bad choice. It was ridiculous. And you got ridiculed for it, and that helps you make a better choice the next time you go to a wedding. That's what ridicule is supposed to do. It's not supposed to tear you down. And I guarantee you, you have encountered a lot of people in your life and in society who have tried to, in a more mild form, let you know with more tact that what you're saying is kind of ridiculous. But you didn't hear that. You didn't hear it. You didn't want to hear it. And so at some point, the volume gets loud enough so that it's turned up to ridicule. And that's what it takes. Now you finally hear it. You're missing the message, but at least you're hearing some pushback. The reason this idea is so important is because Christianity has built in uh, opposite incentives. And so it intentionally gives Christians the wrong message. If the world loves you, you're doing something wrong. And if the world hates you and ridicules you, then you're doing something right. And so Christians, when they hear ridicule in any form, no matter how mild, they think that's proof that they're doing something right. The world persecutes you, so that's proof that you're doing something right. But an ordinary incentive structure would inform you that if people are liking you and you're fitting in, that you're maybe doing something socially right. And if they are ridiculing you, you might be doing something wrong. And so the average person at some point, when it gets cranked up to ridicule, does some introspection to figure out what's wrong. But in the Christian worldview, the Christian is never wrong because if people are ridiculing them, that's just reinforcement of the rightness of the Christian. And you can blame Jesus for that, by the way, because Jesus says you should be happy about that situation. So an article like this is nonsense um, in a Christian worldview. It just says that people are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and you, rather than feeling all depressed about it and suicidal, you should be glad. That's Jesus. It's ridiculous, so I ridicule it. But this is one of the reasons why Christians take ridicule so differently than almost everybody else, and they don't recognize it when they're the ones doing the ridiculing. Christian belief is often made to look silly by ridiculers who know that the discomfort caused by laughter will discourage people from taking it seriously. This is this berating tactic is subtle in cultural thought, and has the potential to deter Christian confidence. Okay, let me just say, if I accomplish one thing over my career of polemic, I hope it is that I deter Christian confidence. You should not be as confident as you are in frankly ridiculous ideas. You should be met with epistemic humility and have epistemic humility. And if you don't, over a series of conversations, and you voluntarily jump into conversations like this with your epistemic certainty, you're going to get slapped down hard, real hard. And one of the best things that can happen for Christianity is for them to continue with their confidence, to call into shows and write into blogs and bloggers, atheists who were once Christians and know their Bibles better than the Christians, and have their ideas ground up in the grinder of polemic. You deserve it. And the world is a better place for it, because you will be a little bit shyer the next time about jumping out with the nonsense that you were feeling confident about before. And it's a good thing. Even John Lennox is self-aware enough to recognize that what he calls new atheism was actually good for Christianity in that respect. It made them have to shed ridiculous ideas and go back and restudy and actually learn and stop saying ridiculous things and using ridiculous arguments. Um, so, yeah, I very much hope I can grind down Christian confidence, because it's only when your confidence is shaken that you can truly go back and study an issue with humility. Now, you might end up studying yourself right back into the position you were holding before. That's fine. But I happen to believe that the average Christian's faith is largely unexamined. And we know that because we've listened to Christians talk for a long time, for hours and hours at a time, and they're willing to record it and put it on the internet. And it is very clear that they have an unexamined faith. For example, in the popular cartoon The Simpsons, who are the next door neighbors, the Flanders, a typical evangelical family that lives out their Christian faith. The evangelical views of Ned Flanders are often satirized and laughed at by Homer Simpson. But in culture, the comedic value goes beyond laughter. I remember when the Simpsons were gaining cultural awareness and I was at a social event with a mix of people in conversation, I answered that I was engaged in ministry. And a good friend who wasn't a Christian added for support, but Marlon is a thoughtful evangelical Christian. The people before me smiled and commented politely. You mean You seriously identify with Ned Flanders? And they laughed innocently enough. Yeah, you deserve that, actually. Um, so you really need to stop identifying yourself by your religious faith because that has become your identity. And stop identifying yourself with whatever work you do in the church. Oh, I'm a minister. Do you know how arrogant and annoying that is to a normal person? Someone who spends their life working in the Red Cross and being on the scene at uh, fires where people have lost their homes and they've got kids and they've got to, hand out teddy bears and give people vouchers to go to hotels and help them put their lives together. You know what they don't describe themselves as? Oh, I'm a minister. I'm a disaster minister. Um, Right, but the Christian, it's so important to them to use some kind of religious terminology to make it clear to people who are obviously not asking about your religion, just kind of what you do for a living. There are people who are greater, more impactful ministers, servants of people than you. And yet they manage not to talk about themselves that way because they're not asshats. So when you identify yourself that way, you are asking for the ridicule that you richly deserve. All right, let's see. It's a long article. Let's see if there's one other thing maybe I want to grab here. Sitcoms. Um, Nevertheless, Christians should avoid responding in kind with memes that ridicule unbelievers. And for this sentence alone, I tip my hat to the writer who has otherwise been very non-self-aware. Um, I've been in debate slash discussion with more Christians than I can count, and some of those have been on audio or video format, so you can go back and listen to them. I'm dealing with Christians who are not merely fighting fire with fire; they're just nasty people who are so certain about their positions that they don't see themselves being rude and condescending, not in the least. They're being pastoral. They're taking the time to come down to the level of we normies to teach us great truths. Yeah, I'd say rhetorically, they deserve to get punched in the face. And I'm happy to do it for them. Yes, I've grown up a little bit. Uh, so that's not my first response these days, but it is an understandable one. And I would also say that if Christians want to diffuse the attacks that are coming at them through memes, by the way, we didn't start the fight. If you want to, um, if you want to diffuse that somewhat, first of all, apologize, repent, if I can use your language, of engaging in the ways that you have. That means you've got to become self-aware, and then stop responding in kind. All right, you actually threw the first stone, even though you may not realize it. You spat off of the balcony of your ivory tower and soiled the hats and faces of all the little people below you for years, and eventually someone threw a rock at you. And you point at the rock thrower and you blame them for the ensuing fight. And so you pick up a bigger rock and you throw it, and away we go. Right? So whether you think you are responsible for starting the fight or not, you are, by the way, is irrelevant. If you don't want the fight to continue, you can defuse it by putting down your goddamn rock. I do not feel sorry at all for Christians who get their feelings hurt in a battle where people are just verbally punching each other in the face. Because at that very moment, they're balling up their rhetorical fist to punch right back. Okay? They don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of polemic. They're just mad that the polemicist is getting the best of them. So they try to out-polemic the polemicist. So it's clear that they don't see anything wrong with it. They just recognize that they're not good at it. So, regardless of how you think the war started, if you want to be a Christian, you don't have the right to fight it. You don't get to fight fire with fire. You don't get to call yourself a Christian and go for an eye for an eye. You don't turn the other cheek. You don't simply be insulted and be glad of it. No, you got to punch him back even harder. You can do that, but you are defying Christianity, which is the thing that you're supposedly representing. All right, so don't fight back that way. I always discourage it. Our focus should remain on the standard playbook, looking to Jesus. From a Christian perspective, check. I agree with that. The founder and perfecter of our faith, sure. Okay. The school of Jesus will reward spiritually and intellectually by increasing discovery, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So smart me, but let's go. I say this so that no one may delude you with plausible arguments. This is a series of a collage of partly quoted Bible verses. I'm just not reading the references, but that last one's Colossians 2, 3, and 4 if you want to. I find that one particularly galling. They want to use arguments as apologetics to firm up their faith, but they are taught not to listen and be deluded by plausible arguments from the other side. Christian faith can continue to persevere confidently even in the digital age, and by wise discernment, it can withstand the culture's satirical intimidations. As I have written on Christian confidence, and worth repeating, it is not the human component that is confident, but God's grace within that is unassailable and strengthens a Christian's faith and practice. Okay, so if you're a Christian, this is a good article. You should read it. It has its fair share of bullshit, but you should read it. If you're not a Christian, you don't have to read it, but I encourage you to give it some thought and do as I have tried to do, which is try to still man it enough to pull out some good things that are worthy of talking about. So I just want to be clear. I oppose bullying of any kind. I hate bullies. Let me just, yeah, I will. I will reveal something that is probably the worst attribute about myself. I want all bullies to drop dead. Just clear the earth of that kind of thing. As someone who knows what it's like to be a real victim of real bullying, The act of bullying does not exist to strengthen people. It exists to tear people down, to tear society down. It is 100% harm with nothing good behind it. And someone who gets their pleasure by harming other people should be unalive. They should just drop dead from a great moral law of bullies be dead. You know, if there was a God worth worshiping, they would just drop bully bodies. We wouldn't have to deal with that. Um, I am not. This is why I was not sorry about the death of Charlie Kirk. I'm sorry that it happened the way it did. I hate that it happened the way it did, but I'm glad he's dead. I am glad Charlie Kirk is dead. The one who did the Chick tracks, I'm glad he's dead. Hitler, I'm glad he's dead. When Putin dies, I'll be glad he's dead. All right, bully should not be here. I celebrate moments when few of them are around. I don't think any Christians shed a tear when Osama bin Laden, uh, you know, died shitting himself in a cave. I don't. I'm glad he's dead. Some of the Islamic leaders in this Islamic war that we're in that's ill-advised. But every one of these radical Islamists who live their lives by intimidating and harming and killing innocent people who believe differently, I'm glad they're dead. Even if Trump gets some credit for it, I'm glad they are no longer on this planet. I hate bullies, and I hate the act and idea of bullying. Um, I would rather be dead than be a bully. So if I ever started thinking of myself that way, I would pull back. Some of the changes that I've made over the years have to do with backing away from the perception of bullying. Um, so it becomes so much easier to bully people online. And so it is extremely dangerous. And so this public service announcement is don't bully. Argue, ridicule the ridiculous, polemicize, speak in the language of your opponent, if that's how the only way they can hear you. Engage, but don't bully. And if you think the only way that you can make your point is to bully, uh, censor yourself from the internet and find better ways to make your point. Bullying is never good. It is never acceptable. And people who are susceptible of being victims, who thinks that everyone is bullying them, maybe internet uh, theological discussion boards are the wrong place for you. Theological YouTube, theological TikTok, those are the wrong places for you. Those platforms are full of puppies. I know because I'm kind of a dog guy. I know exactly how much time you can lose in a day to dog videos and cat videos. That's a better use of your life than feeling bullied and allowing yourself to be bullied and putting yourself purposely in situations where the outcome is going to be that you suffer effects of bullying, whether the bullying was actually there or not. I don't want you as an audience member. If you were that person, it's not because I dislike you. It's because I care about you, and nothing that I do is going to make you feel not victimized. So, those who uh, read this article, those who have watched this show and have been with it for the hour that I have been talking, uh, please use as a takeaway that polemic is not the same as bullying. Regardless of who threw the first stone, uh, don't bully. Fight rigorously. Fight to the level of the person you're fighting. All right. Don't come in as a bodybuilder beating up on a little kid. That's bullying, even if you were provoked. Um, be careful with other people's feelings. Be delicate with the humanity of other people, because humanity is a delicate, fragile thing, and it's easy for you to stomp on no matter which side of this you're coming from. That's me. How about you? Skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log in your Discuss account, discuss away. Send me an email, skepticsandseekers at gmail.com. Until next time, I will see you in the comments, and in the meantime, I'm out.